Hello and welcome. My name is Angela, and today I'm going to share all the books that I got from my library recently. And there was a lot more than I planned or expected. So tell me if anybody else has had this happen, but when you place a bunch of books on hold, I've been placing these on hold since November, December, January, and all of them came in at the same time. Actually, all of them came in at the same time. So I'm really excited to finally have these books, but the fact that they all came to me at once and that there's holds on them already, so I can only have it for one cycle, we'll see how much I actually get to. So that's gonna be a fun struggle, but actually fun, but a little bit of a struggle. I'll start with the nonfiction really quickly. So the spring semester started recently for me, and buying books for class is something I both absolutely love and really hate. The hating comes from the fact that they are outrageously expensive. The loving comes from the fact of getting to read about new subjects, and my favorite part is when you get to go to the bookstore and you get to see what all of the classes are choosing for their books, and I just take pictures of them all and then see if I can find them at the library. So even though I didn't get to take all the classes I want, I can at least kind of peek at what they're doing and read any books that I can see the teachers recommend that I find interesting. So a couple of those that I found at my library is a book by Karen Armstrong called A Short History of Myth. It was something that I flipped through, and I read the Goodreads reviews, and some people say that it is way too brief, and there's absolutely no way that in a book, this is not even 200 pages. Let me double check here. Yeah, it's barely over 150 pages. They say that there's no way that you can possibly cover the history of myth through that, but I'm hoping at least it'll be an introduction, and I've read the first chapter and it does sound pretty interesting. And as expected, it is a discussion on human beings' fascination with creating myths, creating beliefs and faiths around things in the world. The other book that was assigned for a class that I wanted to read myself, that thankfully my library had, is called Transgender History by Susan Stryker, Roots of Today's Revolution. It talks about, since the 19th century, the different events and movements and writings that helped make up transgender history and the transgender movement. I'm excited to read a history from an Own Voices point of view. The next group of books that I got was not assigned, but I'm taking a world history class, and we're talking about the beginning of history of man, and I wanted to read more about hominids and our origins. And so my teacher emailed me a list of a bunch of books that he recommends and that are pretty recent and reputable. So some of them that he recommended is Before the Dawn by Nicholas Wade, Recovering the Lost History of Our Ancestors. This one, I don't know why the library put the code right over the title, but it is called African Exodus, The Origins of Modern Humanity by Christopher Stringer and Robin McKee. Then the last one that the library had available that he recommended is The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey by Spencer Wells. The next book, I do this often. I don't know that many people realize this. I'm sure they do, but it seems like I've never heard anybody else talk about it very much. But you can get cookbooks from your library, which is nice because I find that when I buy my own cookbooks, I end up using like a handful of recipes, and they're pretty pricey as they are. And so when you end up only liking a handful of recipes, it seems kind of like a waste. So I've taken to getting a lot of cookbooks from the library, and then that way you can just choose which ones you like the best, write them down or take pictures, and then you got them for free. This one is Better Homes and Gardens, 100 Recipes You'll Make Forever. The cover just makes me hungry looking at it as it is. 100 recipes you'll make forever. I will take a couple of recipes that I'll make forever. That would be fabulous to add more to the arsenal. So I'm really excited to dive into this because I've noticed Better Homes and Gardens, I really end up liking quite a bit of their recipes. A graphic novel that I put on hold and came in really quickly, I'm glad about, is Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, an Introvert Story by Debbie Tung. How adorable is this art? I picked this up on Zoe Delaney's recommendation from Zoe Reads. Seeing how emotional she got over this and how seen she was from this because she's an introvert makes me so excited because I'm super introverted myself. I can be outgoing in the right situation, but that has very limited time periods until I just get exhausted and overwhelmed. So reading a graphic novel with such cute artwork about someone who likes the quiet, who likes to have time alone, so promising. I hope that I feel just as seen as she did, and I'm sure I will. It looks precious. A book that I've had on hold for a really long time is The Hand on the Wall by Maureen Johnson. Oh my goodness. Finally, the third and final book in the Truly Devious series. If you haven't read this series, I would recommend it. It's young adult, you can definitely tell that. It's not necessarily the same as reading an Agatha Christie or anything like that, but it's still really lighthearted. Well, as lighthearted as a murder mystery can be. It's very easy to read. You fly through it. And it is about a really fancy boarding school called Ellingham Academy in the mountains of Vermont. And it's a select few people that can actually get into this school. It's very based around talents and interests and exceeding at what that is for you. The main character, Stevie, is really interested in solving mysteries and crime. Just so happens that in Ellingham Academy there's a really famous and publicized murder crime happening at Ellingham Academy. And so Stevie comes in and things ensue that she gets to use to test out her skills to see if she can figure out how it happened, if anything else is happening now, how to figure out who's doing it and prevent that. It's hard to talk about because it's the third book in the series and it's a mystery, so I can't give anything away, but you start with number 1, Truly Devious. It's good quick reads. The next book I can guarantee I'm going to read because I love this series. This is Come Tumbling Down by Seanan McGuire, which is the 5th book in the Wayward Children series. The first one is called Every Heart a Doorway. They're such short, quick reads. I read them pretty much all in one sitting. It is set in a world where there are doors that some children find and go to, and when they go through the door, they're in a fantasy world. Typically, people think of Alice in Wonderland as an example. But in this world that Seanan McGuire wrote, sometimes they come out of that fantasy world and they want to go back, but they can't. And they're pretty disillusioned after spending so much time there. They're really in that world, and now they're back here. There is a boarding school, and this is from a woman, Eleanor West, who has experienced her own door before and knows that these kids will never be the same. They come to this boarding school on the guise of it being a boarding school because the parents don't know what to do with them. But really, it seems more like a place to cope, to learn how to cope with being back. And sometimes they get to go back if their door appears again. And this one, the 5th one, usually you don't need to have read the others. You just kind of have to understand the world. But with this one, I've heard that you do especially need to have read the 2nd book, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, because this is also centered around 2 siblings, Jack and Jill. So I can't wait to see. Their story is so interesting. It's like mad scientist, vampires, all that weird stuff, which is always a fun time. This next book is a little worse for wear from the library. Typically it's in plastic and this one isn't, but either way I get to read it, which makes me happy. And it is Moon of the Crusted Snow. I can't pronounce their first name, but it's that. And last name Rice. Gorgeous cover too, by the way. And I didn't realize that it wasn't that long. I put this on hold because Kayla from Books and Lala spoke highly about it. This one, though, I don't want to know much about. This is one of those that, especially with how short it is, I like to go in not knowing much so that the entire thing is all new and a new journey for me. The only thing that I know about this is that it is kind of doomsday-ish from what I can tell. I don't want to say apocalyptic, but I know that it's almost like a survival story. Next, I got, after a long wait, Black Girl Unlimited by Echo Brown. This book I heard is very big on magical realism, and the magical realism lends to metaphor, which I'm very excited about. The main character is a wizard, and she is able to travel through a portal that opens up, portals possibly, except that there is some darkness going around. I don't know if it's actual magic darkness or if it's just people struggling, and it's starting to affect her, and she has to figure out how to deal with these struggles. This next book, oof. This one I feel like is going to be really heavy and hard-hitting, and this is called Let's Go Swimming on Doomsday by Natalie C. Anderson. This one is about 16-year-old Abdi, and his older brother gets kidnapped by a terrorist organization, and he becomes a child soldier. Because of that, a bit later, Abdi and his family get abducted by the CIA. The only way that they can be released is if they infiltrate it and spy and try to get the plans for their next attack. Let's Go Swimming on Doomsday was recommended by Jessie from Bow Ties and Books. And finally, we reach the end of the books that came in, thankfully, because oh my gosh, how am I gonna read all of these? This one is by Bridget Kemmerer, A Heart So Fierce and Broken. By the way, I'm pretty sure I'm the first person that got quite a few of these books because they are untouched, and I put them on hold last year and they just came out. So how great is that, being the first one to touch the library book? This book is a sequel to A Curse So Dark and Lonely, right? Yeah, these names are very similar. A Curse So Dark and Lonely, A Heart So Fierce and Broken. Oh, poetic. This is another one that I flew through. I'm pretty sure I read the first book in one sitting. It's because it's such an easy world to fall into. It's a beautiful fantasy world, but it also has the portal, I want to say it was a portal, to our world, our modern world as we know it. And the main character has cerebral palsy, which is a great representation that is rare to find. And she is a tough woman. She's great. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and she gets pulled into this world to try to break the curse, as does happen in Beauty and the Beast. And there's not a lot more that you really want to know going in besides the fact that it is a more modern day Beauty and the Beast retelling, but still with the fantasy element. It's not modern where the prince and them is involved. Them, I say, is Gray, one of his guards, I believe, soldiers. He's great. He's great. And I'm nervous that in this book they're going to try to pull a hardcore love triangle. I'm not a fan of those, so we'll see what happens. Thank you for watching my library haul if you stuck around for all of these books. Hopefully these books will get read before I have to return them because I am so anxious to read so many of them. All of them. There's not one that I don't want to read. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if they're interesting to you, if you've heard of them. No spoilers. No spoilers. That's the rule, the golden rule of BookTube, though. You can't give any spoilers, please. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.